We live in tumultuous times for the struggle for justice and racial equity in the U.S. Amidst rampant police brutality against Black people arose the Black Lives Matter movement, which flourished on social media with the ubiquitous hashtag and messaging to make people of color's voices heard and images seen. White people and other people of privilege like myself were called upon to do the work necessary to educate themselves and not become a contributor to a systemic culture of oppression. I didn't know how. It was unfamiliar territory. I felt guilty. I felt fearful of saying and doing the wrong thing. I came across an article from the Urban Institute applying racial equity awareness and data visualization. They have an internal style guide that considers the words and images they use in order to, quote, develop a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive approach to presenting and visualizing data. I read the paper with interest since it offered specific areas where designers can be more inclusive in how we present data. Making choices that do not reinforce gender or racial stereotypes sounds obvious, but look at this real-life example, where the blue used for whites seem to pop off the page and make that population look more important than other ethnic groups. The design field itself is notably lacking in diversity of gender and ethnic representation. In the AIGA's Design Census 2019, out of a total of 9,429 respondents, 71% were white, 9% were Asian, 8% were Latinx, 5% were biracial, and 3% were Black. So where are the Black designers? Anne Berry is a designer and academic. In her essay, The Black Designer's Identity, she admits not knowing anything about the contributions of Black designers until late in her career. She says, quote, a predominantly white profession since its inception, design continues to exist as a space in which European influence remains the primary standard by which good design is measured. She continues to say, quote, a full inclusive design history has yet to become the new standard for design education, end quote. And one of my takeaways? I fear that white designers are designing for a predominantly white audience. Throughout my 20-year graphic design career in education, I haven't learned much about designers of color. In researching this paper, I learned of W.E.B. Du Bois's infographics of African American life that he created as early as 1900. And I discovered Gail Anderson and her innovative use of hand-drawn type, for example shown here in the pages of Rolling Stone from 1990. I draw letter forms all the time in my graphic recording and illustration work. She influenced a generation of designers, and I also need to acknowledge her as my inspiration. Good graphic designers have always employed critical thinking skills. A critical reflection is used not only on the design problem, process, and products, but should also be cast on ourselves and our role as designers. How can we employ critical thinking skills through the lens of DEI? Innovations in the field of design thinking may yield some answers. The design thinking process at Stanford D School asks, quote, how might we design with intention to eliminate oppression, end quote. Since 2016, their framework includes two new modes, notice and reflect, which, quote, hold the vulnerability and courage needed to develop one's self-awareness as an equity-centered designer. Possibly the most clear instructions to utilizing a design thinking approach and, quote, building equitable products, services, and content comes from Boyan Gao and Jahan Mantanen in their guide, How to Begin Designing for Diversity. They've created a framework which, quote, enables you to make better work by illuminating cultural and racial biases within your design, ideation, and creative processes. Their Design for Diversity D4D tool poses 5 core questions to help designers think critically about, quote, who we are, how we create, and who we are creating for, end quote, using the term design in its broadest sense to mean anyone involved in the creation of products, services, and objects, not just graphic designers. Core question number 1, what's the worst case scenario and on whom? Core question number 2, how do the identities within your team influence and impact your design decisions? Core question number 3, who might you be excluding? Core question number 4, how will you engage the people you want to reach within your design process equitably? Core question number 5, is the ongoing process of improving your products/service informed by the source. In concluding the guide, the authors are encouraging, quote, "It's vital to understand the role our cultural and racial biases play in how we interact with others, how we build our teams, who we view as experts, how we create, and for whom," end quote. In reflecting back, what I have come to discover in my research is that designing with an awareness of DEI lies in applying the critical thinking skills graphic designers have always employed, even more broadly, to encompass social justice topics. Our success as designers lies in our professional experiences, and critical analysis is extremely important towards understanding and interpreting those experiences, which can and should include an examination of bias and privilege. The death of George Floyd at the hands of police became the flashpoint for ongoing protests against injustice. These high-profile historic events have left many people pondering how to eliminate systemic racism. As a creative professional, I need to cultivate an awareness of these issues and ask myself, are my actions contributing to racism? What implicit bias do I bring to my work? From the AIGA comes this quote, "The benefit of expanding social justice knowledge as designers is that the messages communicated become more inclusive. When thinking is inclusive, it enhances creativity and the ability to generate more ideas and better solutions, which in turn activates the ability to be more innovative."